Hey everyone, today I want to talk about Final Fantasy XII. So, I'll give a brief non spoiler summary of the plot, then explain gameplay mechanics, and examine the pros and cons of the game afterwards. But first, a disclaimer I have played Final Fantasy XII 5 times, around 80 to 100 hours invested into each playthrough. So, there will definitely be a clear bias in favor of this game. And for good reason, since it was my first Final Fantasy game and my hook into both the Final Fantasy series and JRPG genre. I think for many people, the beginning of Final Fantasy XII is very odd, confusing, and in some ways unengaging. Because we start off playing as Rex for an hour as we are thrown into the middle of the front lines of a war in a desperate effort to save the King of Dalmasca, and then, once that hour is over, 2 years pass and we switch to playing as his younger brother, Vaughn, and end up doing a few errands, including a hunt for a tomato monster during more peaceful times. Now, you might be wondering what's going on. We had a war, we have peace, and clearly there's some tension. And what becomes clear is that the Arcadian Empire has won the war, and Vayne Solidor is stepping in as counsel for Rabanastre, and soon to be Emperor of all of Dalmasca. And the people aren't happy about welcoming the Emperor, princes, and armies of those who killed their king. However, Vayne seems to win over the people of Rabanastre with a speech that demonstrates respect for their late king and enforces a notion of peace. But, of course, this is a story where the Empire is the enemy, and all I can say is that the plot will unfold as such. Now let's take a look at the gameplay. We don't have the usual turn-based combat of Final Fantasy 1 through 10. Instead, we have something called Active Dimension Battle, which basically comes with a time gauge that determines when your character can carry out his or her next attack, cast another magic, or use another item. If you feel this system works very slowly at first, then the good news is you can eventually unlock swiftness abilities, which reduce your wait time by 10% for each swiftness you unlock. Additionally, we have a license board. You earn EXP by defeating monsters, which increases your character level and thus your health, MP, and other stats. And you earn license points from defeating enemies, which are used to unlock portions of your license board. This is essential for literally everything. You can't use certain types of magic unless you unlock the license for it. You can't equip certain types of weapons or armor unless you have a license for it. And licenses are also necessary to unlock abilities like the swiftness I mentioned, HP buffs, or, most importantly, your ultimate attacks, which are referred to as quickenings. I recommend looking at your license board as early as possible, pinpointing where the quickenings are and unlocking those for your characters as soon as you can. There are a number of challenging boss battles, especially early on, and having those ultimate attacks unlocked will be a lifesaver, especially since you can chain them for increased damage and an extra massive elemental attack at the end. Now, here's the catch. In the original PlayStation 2 version of the game, each character had the entire license board available to them. This meant each character could be a swordsman, archer, white mage, and black mage all at the same time. But in the Zodiac Age PlayStation 4 remaster, they re-implemented the Final Fantasy job system, meaning each character has a limited license board and can only select 2 job types. This means you're going to have to plan carefully with regard to having a white mage, black mage, and I definitely recommend an archer for flying enemies, including flying bosses, even if the archery job is only a secondary job on one of your characters. Now, here's the good news. In the PlayStation 2 version, your ultimate attacks or quickenings cost MP, which meant you had to choose between healing or unleashing an ult in some cases. But again, this wasn't too bad because everyone could be a healer, and you also had items. So, choosing jobs and having less healers in the remaster may sound a bit daunting, right? Luckily, the remaster creates a separate quickening gauge as seen below each character's HP and MP. This means you won't have to worry about your MP and can devote all your MP to any necessary healing. Hopefully you now understand the license board system, your ults, and that you can equip weapons and armor like any other JRPG game. But, you also have another mechanic in this game known as gambits, which will usually have to be purchased at shops. Gambits are skills that can be equipped and enabled to automatically make characters perform certain actions. For example, if you want a character to heal party members once their HP falls below 50%, you can set a gambit that will have them do that. Or if you want a party member to revive fallen members from KO, then you can set a gambit for that as well. It almost feels like there are a limitless number of options for how to set up gambits, so this is definitely an aspect of strategy that should not be overlooked. So now let's talk about the pros and cons. And let's start with the cons so we can end on a high note. The story itself is quite enjoyable, and it has a number of highly engaging moments that make you think, oh snaps, we gotta keep going and right the Empire's wrongs. However, there are a number of potential issues I can see with the plot. For example, I don't think there's much, if any, character development. I think the characters are, for the most part, the same at the end as they were in the beginning. Maybe one or two of the 6 main characters have a bit of growth, but nothing too extraordinary. And again, the game is definitely plot driven, but I know gamers who look for character development might take issue with not having more take place. Another issue is, some of the party members are highly forgettable. Like, bro, you've been with me since the start of the game, and I totally forgot you were there. And the last issue is that the main villains just aren't too exciting. Yes, Ving Solidor gives a cool speech in the beginning, and yes, the concept of fighting an empire seems cool, but the human enemies just aren't really all that captivating. I think they needed more background and development, as was the case with the protagonists. So, we have a decent but not perfect plot. Now, what are some of the strengths of the game? I must say, once I mastered the gameplay mechanics, the battle system became quite enjoyable for me. I also always tell people that my absolute favorite aspect of the game is that there are just so many powerful monsters to fight, many of which are optional. This is partly because there is a hunt mechanic in the game, which allows you to hunt and fight monsters of various difficulty ranks to earn gil and other rewards, but partially because there are also optional Esper battles, Espers being godlike deities you can summon, and other optional bosses that are not Espers or hunt related. Furthermore, regarding hunts, most of your hunts will be posted in the tavern, but make sure you also find the Hunters Guild led by Montblanc in Rabenastra's North End, as he will have some exclusive hunts and extra rewards for you. It will also be good to know that Montblanc's hunt ratings are kind of misleading. For example, there's a 3-star monster called a Gill Snapper, which feels more like fighting a 4 or even a 5-star monster. So always assume Montblanc's hunts are a level or 2 higher than what he's telling you. Another strength of the game is that the game is fairly open world once you get past the first 4 or 5 hours of gameplay, and you can run around or teleport to any place on the map. It is definitely not as linear as Final Fantasy X, it will not prevent you from backtracking like Cocoon in Final Fantasy XIII, and it doesn't involve running around a world map like in Final Fantasy IX. And having the game open world makes sense if you're going to be exploring and looking for monsters during your hunts, right? So, in a sense, I guess the hunt mechanic gives off Monster Hunter vibes. Full disclaimer, I'm not a Monster Hunter fan, but the Monster Hunter feel of some aspects of Final Fantasy XII is hands down my favorite aspect of the game. Another positive aspect of the game would be the soundtrack. Listen to the tunes that play when you're out on the Cerobi Steppe if you want a relaxing vibe. Or, if you want some high intensity battle music, which is what I really enjoy, then go listen to the Esper battle theme, or even the Gilgamesh battle theme. So, to wrap things up, Final Fantasy XII probably won't be for everybody. Hell, if you had explained it to me before I purchased it, I would have probably doubted if it was my type of game. However, I definitely think it's a game worth trying out and sticking with, because it may hook you if you give it that chance, and you may end up just as grateful as I am for giving it that chance. The monster hunting mechanics, open world exploration, and soundtrack are absolutely amazing, and the plot, while not perfect, does have some interesting and engaging moments. So, I'll leave the decision up to you. Do you want to be the brave hero that fights back against an empire? Do you want to be the courageous warrior that takes down monsters that plague people's nightmares and slaughter even the toughest of fighters? If you desire all this valor, honor, and prestige, then give Final Fantasy XII a shot and let me know how your experience goes. Remember to leave a like, comment on the video to let me know what your favorite Final Fantasy or JRPG titles are and why, and subscribe for more anime, manga, gaming, figurine, and card collecting content. Thanks for watching and see ya.